sense of these things. Because for me, if it is that I want to know that how people be creative, okay, this is the only one thing. The other aspect is that how we can harness this energy to be, because some people, I feel that it is in, I saw that on the internet and in discussion, people are worried about that. They feel that their darker side, their shadow side is coming out. And this is really interesting that people actually associate their anger and not so positive emotions to the shadow side.
Right.
I feel that it is not. It is simply that, okay, these emotions and these things are which you feel that inappropriate, but
right.
they have the sense of appropriateness.
Right.
For me, the shadow side has completely no sense of or lack of sense of appropriateness. It is not like that.
Right.
So they are different. My anger side, my boldness, or my some people have like, okay, a very bitter way of saying things. It is not their shadow side. They are completely aware of it. And shadow is something which my awareness is not completely, if not absolutely, but then I'm not completely aware of.
Right.
So it's a slight difference into that.
And okay, I'm writing down, that made me think of something. Whoops. Okay. So one thing for me that was sort of an integral part of being able to see my shadow aspects. So it's interesting when you were mentioning earlier about the sort of connection or connotation between shadow and therapy.
Mm-hmm.
I was reading something, I think on social media the other day. Somebody was saying something about how they had been doing shadow work, and they said something along the lines of, shadow work is so hard because it forces you, they basically were saying in different words, it forces you to face your awful truths about yourself. And it forces you to look at these bad parts of yourself that you skip over and you wish weren't there. And it forces you to face that and find some kind of acceptance for, the whole self, including all of these things that you like to pretend don't exist or that wish weren't there. And for me, I think that's how I used to think of sort of shadow aspects or shadow self, which is why I spent so much time shoving that in the basement of I don't want to think about the fact that this is part of me. I don't want it to be a part of me. And so I don't think about it that way anymore. And I think for me, I was just writing down, what do I think personally has allowed me to start working toward trying to have an appropriate balance of shadow and light aspects in myself. One of those things is when I personally came to this understanding that I no longer believe in bad or, evil, or that I don't see shadow aspects of myself as awful truths necessarily, or as, negative parts of me that I just have to somehow learn how to be okay with. If they're not bad, there's no association with bad. It's just as a lack of appropriateness. It's not bad or good in and of itself.
Absolutely.
And the only thing that makes it bad is if I associate it as something bad, or if I allow it to get completely out of control. The thing that makes it good is, this connection with, or the thing in my mind that makes it a good thing is a connection with awareness. But there is, for shadow and light, all of it is a part of goodness. It's just this side lacks an inherent sense of awareness. So it's not bad. It's just need some direction. If you just allow this to come out, and you allow this creative energy that doesn't have any awareness of boundaries to come out, yes, that can be bad, but it's not inherently bad in and of itself.
Exactly, exactly. And this one understanding. Yeah, sorry, please.
Oh no, I was just saying that I think that understanding for me, I think, was a huge part of what allowed me to start thinking about this.
Absolutely, because just this awareness that nothing is bad, it is just a lack of appropriateness. Okay, appropriateness is what? Okay, according to our norms, our social, religious, family, and these type of norms. It is just lack of awareness, and I'm not aware of it. That's it. Just this having this understanding, it actually release tons of guilt we carry around.
Absolutely, yes. And I think for me too, on seeing it in that way makes it okay for me to acknowledge that these are a part of me. It makes it safe for me to like open that door and start looking inside, because now I don't have to be afraid.
Exactly.
Unknown parts of me. It's not like, oh, I'm unleashing this like crazed animal, and who knows what's going to happen. No. And that's the other thing that I wrote down of what do I think has been necessary for me to start working toward this balance of shadow and light is self-trust in my own ability to be appropriate. Because if I understand now that shadow elements are simply elements that inherently lack an understanding of awareness or a sense of boundaries, then in order to feel safe opening that door, I need to have a certain foundation of self,
yes,
my own ability to understand and be appropriate, so that when I open that door, I can go, okay, I can apply appropriateness to these elements and not be afraid that this is going to like balloon out and turn into total chaos.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think some level, and it probably doesn't have to be huge, but some minimal foundation of self-trust in my own, and maybe not even my own current appropriateness, but my ability to be appropriate at some point, my ability to learn and understand appropriateness and to work toward appropriateness. If I have some sort of foundation with that, then it now becomes safe for me to open the door to shadow elements and start exploring that and understanding it.
So one thing I feel that, okay, to tap into that, like you said, that you use the analogy of opening a door and just peeking inside, like, okay, yes, there it is.
Right.
Yes, it's an acknowledgement.
Yes,
absolutely. And not suppressing it. We are not denying it. We are not negating it. Right. We're not trying to hide it from everyone and also from our own self. We are acknowledging that, yes, it exists and it is what it is. We are not like saying, labeling it with good or bad or whatever it is. Nothing. It is just pure acknowledgement that, yes, this is also my side. Right. On top of that, when we have that we have this understanding or awareness that it is raw creative energy. It just having this understanding gives you kind of an alert also, like, okay, this is raw. We need to be careful. This is creative. We can have fun with it. And this is energy. We need to be really careful about that. So this is kind of like these three words, a combination of these three words makes you aware of that, okay, yes, we need to be careful. And it is creative, so we can harness it. If we can harness it, we can have fun with it.
Right.
This energy. Because in any type of energy, we cannot actually destroy, as per laws, we cannot completely destroy energy. Energy just change its forms. Right. We can also channel this raw creative energy into different forms.
And that brings up a really interesting point to me, that one of the reasons why I think doing shadow introspection and acknowledgement is so important is for the reason that you just said, that energy can never be fully destroyed. So if like me, I approached these shadow aspects for most of my life from a perspective of, I don't want anything to do with this. I'm going to pretend that these don't exist. I'm just going to ignore this and act like this is not a part of me. but you can never fully destroy or eradicate or get
Never.
raw energy. So when you shove it down in the basement, it
Yes.
inevitably still reflects itself in some manner in a different form, which for me was, you know, these outbursts of like anger and energy, these sort of seemingly random raw bursts of energy that I had no control over and that were causing lots of problems for me. So ignoring shadow, or, you know, going, well, this is bad and I'm just going to pretend like this doesn't exist.
Yes, it doesn't exist. Yes.
I'm not going to acknowledge it at all. You can't destroy that energy. You can never get rid of it. So the better thing to do, the more appropriate thing to do, is to understand how to harness it appropriately, to use it appropriately.
Exactly. So because it is like that, you use the word analogy that shoving in the basement. So it is like you are shoving in the basement, and that your raw creative energy is having a hard metal rock jamming in the basement, and you are living top and saying that, oh, it's all peaceful and all shanti and all that. No, it's not gonna work, because your basement is actually throbbing with this jamming inside. So how long you can pretend it is all peaceful and cheer and all that? So no, it's not going to work like that. So we need to have some sort of space where we can meet. Again, your term that, okay, this handshake there, where we can, okay, adjust few things, like, okay, I will let it go in some way, so the energy will release every now and then, or maybe in any specific form. That's why people do try this creative things. And I was struggling even when I was taking my art classes. Still, I was feeling that I'm feeling creative. Why? Because the sense of appropriateness is so much imprint in my awareness. Like, I need to be appropriate. My stroke has to be appropriate. My flower has to be in that way. Why it has to be in that way? And that was the question for the music thing. Like, okay, how can anyone write music? For me, music is wild. Music is something pure creativity. How you can write it in forms and rules and rules and regulations.
Right.
And that is something I was struggling to. I'm emphasizing on that. I'm really, really, really interested in to have that ability where I can just have access to this raw creative energy. It is like I have a Mustang and I just want to drive it in a certain speed limit. Okay, that's it. This is my thing. It is wild. It is powerful. I know that, but I want this ability to harness this energy whenever I want to. This is the thing. I'm not discarding, oh, it's too powerful, I don't want this, I will choose a Volkswagen. Come on, no, I don't want that. I want that Mustang. I want to have access to that, and I want to enjoy that. So this was the thing. The third thing, again, as we were discussing about this acknowledgement, this not acknowledging your sides. That's why I was kind of feeling irritated. I do like him, Deepak Chopra, but I was like, come on, how fake he smiles all the time. How it can be. I was like, I was not feeling some completely disconnect from that smile. He's trying to say that in a soft voice. If I'm having this energy and my voice is getting loud, why not?
Right.
It doesn't mean that I'm not peaceful.
Right.
Yeah, for me, this having certain rules for being at peace is not making any sense to me. I never feel connected to that. That's why I was always saying, why he always try to smile.
Right.
Why? In effort. It is something which is not real for me. Might be for him, but not for me. I am not like this. I don't want, and I don't feel that. If I have this energy when I speak like really fast and with loud words and energy, it doesn't mean that I am having a trouble.
Right.
It is just like, okay, you are trying to make it appropriate, it's specifically appropriate.
Absolutely.
It's not the idea of having peace of being. Sorry, my energy is different. Everyone has a different energy. So for me, it was like they are not acknowledging the things which are coming from inside. Yeah, it is like shoving it down. No, everything is so peaceful and on surface. Yes, on surface, if you are doing very well, fine. Some people are able to, maybe he also
Right.
able to actually not having anything. But my mind and my mind's basement is having a hard metal jamming inside. Sorry, I need to acknowledge that, really. So that was the thing. And this thing, when we don't acknowledge these things, it's a continuous guilt we carry on.
Mm-hmm.
This is really a problem, because when you have a guilt, it's kind of an energy draining. You always feel out of energy, like, come on, because I am not acknowledging my own sides.
Right.
Again, acknowledgement. Yes.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, I think that for me is a perfect terminology, I think, for what I'm thinking about too, of the necessity for appropriately expressing and allowing out this energy, is that it really comes down to appropriate energy management, because you're actually expending more energy trying to inappropriately contain
Exactly.
than you would if you just appropriately allowed it to come up. So it's you're practicing bad energy management when you're shoving them down and pretending
Exactly. And this is what I don't know, but why all the therapies, all the things actually teach us to do that. Continuously working on now, like, okay, you need to focus on this and you need to focus. Yes, I need to emphasize on good things and on, but it doesn't actually prove that I just need to not acknowledge what I really am having. So for me, acknowledgement is a big deal for my feelings, for whatever I have, even in this shadow side. But again, acknowledgement doesn't mean that I'm going to accept and start following according to that.
Exactly.
No, it is.
And that I think for me is one of the reasons that this concept of like seeing everything as an expression of goodness, and that there is no such thing as evil. It's just a lack of awareness. That's one of the reasons that I think that was such a mind-blowing concept for me, is because from sort of a traditional therapy perspective, I think, like I would hear things all the time of people talking about self-love and like, how do you have self-love? And it's basically always some form of saying self-love is accepting and like coming to love and appreciate not only your good elements, but also your bad elements.
Yes.
And that did not make sense to me. Like
exactly.
Every time I tried to think that through, it was like, I don't understand how to do that. In practical application, how do I ever come to love something that I believe is bad about myself? Like how do I do that? How is that good in any way, shape, or form? So for me, removing that label of bad and saying, no, the way that you do this in practical application and the way that this makes sense is by seeing that all these things that you think are bad are not actually bad. It's just something that you have yet to understand how it connects to goodness. So that for me makes so much more sense from a self-love and acceptance point of view. It's not about learning to accept and love bad things. It's learning to see the things that you thought were bad as actually just a different expression of goodness, and figuring out how to make those things appropriate. And that was such a huge
deal. Acknowledgement. I'm not denying it. I'm acknowledging, yes, they do exist, and they have their purpose also. But this is something really, really important to understand, that acceptance and following that through. Yes, I'm accepting that these things exist. I acknowledge their presence. This energy exists in me, and this is my raw creative energy. But I'm not going to just let it go. Actually drive me crazy and okay, I'll just let it go because I'm living in this world, I'm living with other people. I need to have, because my freedom is still when I can just move my stick as wild as I can, but till it doesn't touch your nose.
Right.
This is my freedom. Yes, okay, this is my area of freedom. I can go wild whatever I want to, but if it is touching your nose, my stick is touching your nose, no, sorry, it is not my boundary. So then this appropriateness comes in. I can go wild, I can acknowledge my wild creative energy, but I also have to be appropriate because I'm living in this world where other peoples are also living, and I have no right that my choices or my beingness can affect them inappropriately. So there comes the appropriateness part big time, and we need to acknowledge that also. But so it's again, it is coming to that same thing again, balance. But just more than a balance, I want to be able to tap into that creative energy without having any drugs, without having any other thing. I want to be able to tap into that energy and channel it where I want to. Because this is such an amazing, profound energy.
Absolutely.
I can be creative and I can feel creative.
Right. Absolutely.
This is something I want to work on that. And that's why I was like, and then this again, the bonus is, okay, one of the profound bonuses is that it eliminates all the tons of guilt I always carry on. Like, okay, oh, my thoughts are not like this. Okay, I don't feel like that. I'm saying this. I don't want to do this, but I'm doing this. And all these type of things that I understand I have to do and I have to and shoulds, it puts a guilt pressure on me that I'm not actually being real.
Right.
I'm not being real. Sometimes people, they do have their physical orientation and they feel guilty of that. Okay, they struggle. They're not, society or other people are struggling and giving them hard time as much as they give themselves a big hard time, because they are continuously in fight of that guilt.
Right. Absolutely.
I just, because this acknowledgement actually get rid of all this guilt. Yes, we have this energy and this is it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, I think that's so spot on for me. Of, like we were talking about earlier, you need even just the acknowledgement of shadow to break past old limiting beliefs, shoulds, all of that. You won't be able to appropriately, and I guess that, again, I mean, that's an interesting thing where too much of a good thing, on the light side, if we all associate all these light aspects as being good and boundaries and appropriateness and all that as being good, there is such a thing as being too appropriate, sort of inappropriately appropriate, when you're trying to adhere to, I mean, it's sort of inappropriate application of goodness, I think. And I mean, to me, that makes total sense how that becomes a thing. Inappropriate application of goodness happens when you are so disconnected from your shadow aspects.
Yes.
You are only focused on light. Everything becomes about appropriateness, and you have no way to understand or differentiate between what's appropriate for you and what's appropriate for other people. So you become mired in all these shoulds, rules, laws, boundaries. You have no way to step outside of that process enough to see, well, this person's rules might apply for them, but not necessarily for me. So you get mired in this whole thing of shoulds and rules, and that's what your entire life becomes about. And in order to break out of some of those limiting beliefs, you have to connect to your shadow side.
Yes.
And that makes so much sense to me, of why people who are good, truly good people and are trying to be and have good intent and trying to be impeccable, often get so lost in inappropriate
Yes.
application of goodness, because it becomes so much easier to go in that direction and
Yes.
and ignore the shadow side.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just want to add one thing, that, okay, not only that appropriate for them and for me, it might be different, but also what is appropriate now might not be appropriate in future.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
Because sometimes we just
Absolutely.
carry on the appropriate things we have learned in our childhood, and still believe that it is appropriate to just follow all these things.
Yeah.
It might not be the case.
And that makes me think, something that I've thought a lot about is my struggle. I think it is often really hard for me to be truly present in the moment.
Yes.
You know, often I'm thinking about implications, I'm thinking about what ifs, I'm thinking about future outcomes, I'm thinking about past things. It's very hard for me to get into a space where just habitually I am connected fully to the present moment. And that's probably in large part due to overbending on the light side, because
Yes.
it's that creative energy that allows you to remain connected to the present moment.
Absolutely, absolutely. And sometimes, again, it is inappropriate application of goodness. In case of appropriateness also, because we put so much effort to be appropriate, it drains so much of energy, and we feel lost and we feel disconnected. Like, okay, we are so appropriate, we are having a good career, we are having a good relationship, and still feeling lost.
Right.
Why are feeling lost? Because it is some sort of disconnect we are carrying inside our own self, which is, okay, not actually acknowledging my own shadow side.
Right.
Shadow side is a very interesting term. I was just thinking about that. Yes, it makes sense, because if we call it shadow, it means that we are not really able to understand what it is, because we cannot define shadow.
That's true. True. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, so by this shadow side, and we cannot actually touch it or grasp it. It depends on this shadow side, actually dependent on the light. Okay, which is again interesting, that my shadow side is dependent on my awareness. Because of my lack of awareness of this side, it is not actually functional and appropriate, in other words. So this makes sort of sense now. So this shadow side, okay. So today we were discussing, and again, my goal was, and your goal, I think also, that now we have this amazing understanding, mutual understanding about this thing. So first, we want to learn that how to harness this energy, able to actually tap into on our own choice whenever we want to. And the second thing is that we want to go into more into, you can say that, in more in depth about this thing, so we can actually understand that how some people struggle big time with their shadow side, and how some people are able to hide it completely.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some people, so there are different categories. I feel personally, it is not for myself only. I feel that if we are able to, the creative side is for my personal thing. I personally want to tap into that creative energy of myself. But also for other people, like, I want to share this where people can actually relax about their shadow side.
Right. Right.
Really do struggle even to discuss about that.
Right.
Okay, I'm doing this. Some people just flaunt this term that, okay, I'm doing my shadow work. Like, okay, oh yes, I'm into the Moreness and all that. But mostly when it comes to real serious deal, people do avoid that, because it's a guilt involved there. It's a lot of shoulds and nonsense involved there.
Well, and I think, I mean, it's interesting, because I think, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of discussions that I see around shadow work are typically that traditional view of just accepting
Yes.
things that we associate as being bad about ourselves. And what's really interesting to me about that is when it's framed that way, and you know, I think what makes that appealing is that has no connection to real responsibility. Because if you're saying, you know, I mean, if I'm thinking, okay, it's safe for me to do shadow work and acknowledge and accept my shadow side, because all I have to do is just say, well, okay, yes, all of these horrible things exist, and there's all these things about me that I really don't like, but it's okay because I love them and I just accept them, acknowledge them now. You're completely skipping over the actual hard work of taking responsibility, and you're just moving into this sort of denial phase. You're moving from one denial to another. You move from denying that it even exists straight into telling yourself and other people that you have now just accepted and loved this, even though you haven't done any actual work. So for the difference between that kind of, you know, acceptance of shadow versus actual real acceptance of shadow and like bringing that into appropriateness is with what I am seeing as real actual shadow work is it's not the work itself is not just saying, oh, I love this part of me now.
Yes.
Taking responsibility for that part of yourself. You're saying, okay, these are things that I recognize now are not bad. They're just a different form of good. This is the raw creative power associated with goodness. And in order for this to be an appropriate part of me, I need to acknowledge each piece of this, each expression of this that I see, and understand how to apply appropriateness to this.
Yes.
And so I have to take actual responsibility for these shadow elements and learn how to apply appropriateness so that I can actually express these things in an appropriate way. So yeah, for me, it makes sense why sort of traditional shadow work, where all you're doing is just verbalizing, I love this part of me now, I accept this part of me now, is something that people are able to do and, you know, sort of able to cross that threshold, because there's no real responsibility, there's no actual responsibility taking place there. And it's not, if you are struggling to accept those parts of yourself because you're struggling with low self-esteem, doing that shadow work is not addressing self-esteem. It's just verbalizing empty words of saying, well, I love this part of me now. Where the real self-confidence, self-esteem work comes into play is building actual self-trust in your own appropriateness, which is a really necessary part to me of doing real, actual shadow work. You have to start working on your self-confidence, your self-esteem, your self-trust before you can actually open that door and start allowing that energy to assimilate and integrate and be part of you.
Yes, absolutely. It makes sense now, because when we say that, okay, it is my shadow side, and okay, I just love that because I love myself, it's a self-love and all things. How can we love anything or anyone which we don't have a clear idea what it is? First thing,
Absolutely.
first we need to understand and then acknowledge. So first it is understanding what it is, okay, and as much as we can get a clarity about what it is. And then the second thing is acknowledging that yes, it exists and it is there, and it has its own purpose. The third thing is, after acknowledgement, is to be able to create a space where these both sides can actually this shake hand, and then we can channel it. We can channel this raw creative energy in an appropriate way where we want to. There comes the capital C choice. I want to practice my choice there also, and want to channel this energy, this raw creative energy, as I want to, where I want to, when I want to.
Right. Absolutely.
Instead of just pushing it down, pushing it down, pushing it down. And that's why these traditional therapy, I don't have much experience about that, but I just heard some people, okay, my friends also, they are discussing about this thing. They are continuously doing therapies, but still it doesn't work in that way.
Right.
And why I'm saying that it doesn't work, because mostly they say that it is working. But if single chaos, tiny little or chaotic thing happened in their physical world, they feel overwhelmed by that. And they start like defending their, oh, I don't want to just ruin my energy, my positive attitude towards life. It is causing me a trouble. I don't want to interact with this. I don't want to deal with this situation because it is going to put me into negative energy.
Mm-hmm.
How this is going to happen if we actually have this? You are doing your shadow work, you have this piece of being, and then still it's just a tiny little bit thing becomes a big deal for you. So because that it was already this having a jamming in your basement of awareness of basement of your awareness, and you were continuously having drip by drip, like drop by drop, stress of these things. That yes, they exist. I'm just painting my wall, but the mold is already there, no matter what I'm doing on surface.
Right.
So it is there. So this thing is we want to work on that. So this thing is self-love. It is a big question mark for me. I have all these question marks and exclamation mark on that self-love, what self-love is, and where is the boundary, and where is the appropriateness involved with it. Because if mostly you use that term, I saying that people who are old, they are saying that, oh no, you cannot say anything because I just love myself.
Right.
Yes, you need to love yourself, but it is ruining your health. It is damaging. It is not about any other people and their opinion. It is about your health. It is about your life. And still you are saying that, oh, I just love myself. It's not about this. There are some areas and some sides and aspects of this self-love that where you need to really understand that where appropriateness comes in. So this balance is a big deal.
Yes.
We need to have this ability and a space where we can create this balance.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, that's so interesting. This reminds me of one of the sessions that I did with Kathy. We've been doing for the last, I don't know, a couple months. We've been meeting every few weeks in a circle group where there's like multiple clients of hers that have decided to come together, and we'll have these sort of discussions. It's really just sharing together. And one of the questions that she asked, which to me is sort of a defining aspect or difference between real shadow work and fake shadow work, is the question she asked was something along the lines of share, or it wasn't a question exactly, but she said, share an example of a time where your anger was actually became appropriate or good or turned into something appropriate, or was appropriate in this specific context or whatever. Mm-hmm. And to me, that is a really important differentiation when you're talking about this sort of hollow self-love concept versus actual balancing of shadow. Mm-hmm. Rather than accepting bad parts of yourself and just verbalizing out loud, well, yes, I have anger and I'm okay with that. I love myself anyway. You are saying, how can I see my anger as an expression of goodness?
Yes.
Like, how do I'm not just saying, yes, I'm angry and I love myself anyway. It's how do I see this element of shadow as something which is actually good or can be good if appropriateness is applied.
Yes.
That is like this really defining difference to me.
Exactly. Exactly.
And I think for me, like I was saying earlier, it's that, I mean, one of the defining differences in that is one avoids responsibility completely. The other inherently requires responsibility, because you're just saying, well, I love myself anyway, even though I have all these crappy qualities. There's no responsibility. You're not actually taking responsibility for them. If you're saying, how can I see this element of self as having the potential to be good, or being good and having the potential to be appropriate if awareness and appropriateness is applied correctly, there's now an inherent responsibility implied for you to understand how to apply appropriateness to that. So there's responsibility involved there in order for your shadow elements to be appropriate. I need to understand how to make them appropriate and then actually do that. I have to apply the appropriateness.
Yes, yes. And one more thing about this anger or any kind of negative behavior, people say that, okay, oh, this is what I have, and this is my dark side or my shadow side, and I still love myself.
Right.
It is my anger or any kind of expression is just an expression. The source is still somewhere else. If I am getting angry on petty things or simply non-issues, and I have this issue, what I need to understand, this is the acknowledgement that, okay, why I'm getting angry, because something is bothering me, or I'm not able to channel my energy. The energy was actually boiling up inside and I was not able to channel it appropriately. So now it is coming in the form of anger or frustration or any kind of negative behavior. So it is my energy. Again, the acknowledgement is a big deal. If I acknowledge that yes, I have this energy, and if I'm just trying to press it down, it is going to find a way to erupt and comes out in an inappropriate way, in an inaesthetic way. So this anger or any kind of bad mood or any kind of negative expression comes out when we try to press it down and don't acknowledge our raw creative energy. And whenever we lose the control, it finds the fragile surface and it erupts.
That is a really interesting point and a really huge point for me. That, yeah, that's a ooh. I wrote this partially down. I'm going to have to think a lot about that, because that's a really interesting point, that the energy itself, anger is just an expression of that
Yes.
creative energy. And so
exactly,
not necessarily that anger as an expression is appropriate, or, I mean, it could be, but that's
yes.
not anger itself. It's not accepting anger per se. It's
Yes.
responsibility for how the energy is expressed. It could be expressed as anger, and sometimes that may be inappropriate because I'm not appropriately expressing that energy.
Exactly.
But it's really, yeah, that is a really important distinction, that there's no need to be afraid. Like, the energy itself is not anger. Anger is
No.
the expression of the energy.
It's just an expression, an inappropriate expression in most cases. Not entirely, but yes, in most cases, it is an inappropriate expression. It becomes an inappropriate expression.
That is a really important distinction, I think, for me. And I had not necessarily thought about it that way, but that's huge, that there is no reason to be afraid of this raw power and raw energy.
Exactly.
Trust ourselves to express it appropriately. It only becomes inappropriate when we don't have the tools to appropriately direct it and express it. So it's not accepting anger as this inherent part of yourself.
Exactly.
Anger is just what happens when I allow this energy to be expressed inappropriately.
Absolutely.
That's huge. Yeah.
This is the point I was continuously thinking about, and that's why I've said that acknowledgement is a big deal. First, we need to understand what this raw creative energy, because like, okay, people say that, okay, flu is a disease. Flu is not a disease. It's just a mechanism. Your body get rid of toxins when it gets like too much. Yeah. So, and you are trying to treat flu, but you're not actually addressing the core issue. The body is just getting rid of these toxins. It's a cleansing mechanism your body have. And the same thing happened with anger or any kind of negative, so-called negative expressions we have, and we start. And this is really, I don't know, surprising for me that all people, they just rather, okay, accept this, acknowledge it, and embrace it and love it. Yes, but why it is coming? We need to address the source.
Right.
And when we address the source, oh my God, this is just my raw creative energy, which is just like I was not able to appropriately channel it. That's why it is coming out in different ways. Okay, now I can channel it.
Right.
This is the thing. This is really important for me. And that is the reason why we are thinking about this whole shadow thing, because it becomes a huge deal for so many people. I don't know, but when I look into SASE, there are more than 45,000 people now, and almost everyone, not directly but indirectly, somehow people talk about this. Or if they don't talk about it directly, they acknowledge that, click like on these posts. So it means that people are concerned about that. They are dealing with this thing. And if we can actually understand this, we will be able to share with others also. That, okay, yes, this is the thing. We don't need to. Things becomes later on when we actually try to think about and try to think it through to the end.
Right.
Things become like, duh. But before that, it was like, oh my God, it's a huge deal. So, okay, it's this, I get so much value out of it, and I love this. Now, expression and the source is different. We need to acknowledge that expression and source is a different thing.
Absolutely.
That's why I was paying attention to that, emphasizing on that, to understand that what raw creative energy is.
And I think that, to me, separating those two is a really helpful way to make sense of this concept of separating the shadow element, that raw creative energy, from badness. That
Exactly.
The badness only comes into play in the expression and the appropriateness or lack of appropriateness of the expression in a particular moment. The energy itself has nothing to do with
nothing.
The only thing that becomes associated with that is the expression. Make something good and appropriate and useful and valuable and helpful. We only get this association of bad when it's expressed inappropriately. So there's no reason to fear our personal power, raw creative energy. There's nothing inherently bad or to fear about it, as long as we trust ourselves to express it appropriately.
Exactly. And just one more thing to add in here, because it just came into my mind. When it comes to the point where actually this appropriateness and everything comes into play, when it comes to the expression, because if something is inside my subconscious mind, I have no concern about being appropriate and all that. Okay, things are just playing and doing whatever.
Right.
When they start converting into expressions, then it becomes a problem that, okay, now it has to be appropriate. Oh, it was not appropriate, and all these questions rise of appropriateness when my raw creative energy start expressing itself in a different way.
Right.
So this is really interesting to actually think about this, that before it was how it plays when it is hidden and in a shadow, actually in my subconscious mind and playing, and how I was operating accordingly. And when it comes out into my consciousness and awareness and into expression, then it becomes a big different deal.
Yeah. And I think that's a really interesting distinction too, of like, in my mind, I'm sort of seeing it as, your raw creative energy exists in a space. I mean, with you using the word sort of coming into your consciousness, it makes me think of raw creative energy existing in a space that is sort of subconscious and
Yes.
not in a mind space.
Yes.
It's like a soul kind of thing.
Exactly.
When
Yes.
it's filtered up through the conscious awareness, through your processing systems, through your strategy, through your appropriateness, through all
Yes.
of the things that you're able to learn and hone and, you know, really mold and shape, that's where all the expression comes in. So
Yes.
that's really interesting.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that's so interesting. Okay.
It is getting more interesting than I was thinking about. Like really, it is getting more and more, and I just love that.
Me too. Subconscious level, sort of below or outside of mental conscious space. Filtered through conscious awareness, thought, processing, etc. This is when we choose how to express it. Yeah. Yeah, that's super interesting. And I think for me, when I was experiencing these moments of these sort of outbursts, angry expressions, all of these different things, it's almost like that raw energy completely bypasses my conscious process, and it comes straight out in just this like boom. And and that explains so much of why, I mean, I would say so often, I literally like things would just come out of my mouth and I wasn't even aware of what was happening until it had already happened. It was like I would just sort of black out, and then all of a sudden it's like, what did I just say? What did I just do? Because it's completely bypassing
Exactly.
processing.
Exactly. And this is what happened. And I was just using different funny terms for myself, a funny analogy, like, okay, it feels like that I have a frog in my mouth and it's just desperate to jump out. Whenever I open my mouth, it jumps out. And I'm like, oh, from where it is coming out. But now it makes sense that, okay, it is just an expression. And expression which was not really defined or controlled by any sort of appropriateness. So it comes out wherever it finds a way. Now it would make a whole lot of sense that how this, okay, we can go more into more serious things about that, where people don't feel comfortable to discuss about. Like this energy comes into play into many expressions in our life.
Right.
Not only anger, not only being vocal about that. Sometimes we feel jealous of, sometimes we feel shy of, like, I don't want to deal with this. I don't feel confident. This is also this type of energy, which is like trying to avoid some specific situations.
Right.
Because I feel that, okay, I might be exposed in that situation. So I feel shy of, I don't feel confident enough about that because I might get out of control. So my consciousness start to controlling that. So there are so many expressions involved into this raw creative energy I was thinking about. So now we will, okay, so today we have discussed these things. So now we have a whole week to think about it more. And then we will discuss about it again. And I just love that. I love that. It is giving me so much of resolution and connections also.
Me too.
Things were a bit disconnected, like, okay, yes, it makes sense, but it is not connecting the other loose ends. Okay, now it is making more connections too.
Absolutely. Me too.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Thank you. that up. This is so exciting. There's so many things.
So many things, and it seems like right now it is just a beginning, but it seems like that, oh, now I understand that what was going on.
Right. Yes. It's amazing. When you start making sense of one thing, it makes sense of all of these other things.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Okay. I get it.
Yeah. So now it is just a beginning, but still I feel like, oh my God, it makes sense. It makes sense for this. It makes sense for this. And the timing is so divine. I'm using the term divine. I don't use it very often, but yes, timings are so divine because we have these tools already of way of compatibility, from way of compatibility and moreness.
Exactly. That's a big thing. Like I just wrote down that I think for me, in order to get to a place where you can appropriately express that raw creative energy, you have to have a foundation of trusting yourself to filter that energy appropriately and be able to choose appropriately how to express it. If you don't trust yourself to be able to do that, then there's going to be no ability to express it.
I might be so overwhelmed by, so confused by all these things, and might be scared of, like, okay, what's going to happen? But now, this in my life right now, I feel so mature with having all these tools.
Yes.
At my disposal. Like, okay, yes, I can handle. Okay, yes, I can understand.
Yeah.
Yes, I can explore. I have this trust. I have this ability. I can. This is so amazing because now we have done this way of impeccability. We have almost a lot, but also this PSP, like dark side and shadow side when we discuss. So it is so much amazing that we have this foundation. Absolutely. And now we are able to actually deal with these things.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Perfect. Yep. Seems like very perfect.
I'm so excited.
Okay. So yes, I will message Sil that he can join now, and we will say bye or whatever. So
that's good. Yeah, that's true. The PSP aspect, that will be a really interesting thing to go deeper into off of this, that how PSP comes into play and sort of BMN mentality, how yes. into play with this raw creative energy. That will
they might also be struggling with that. Okay, why they are having all these things, because their shadow side is getting expression in a different way,
right?
They might be. And this is again interesting that when we get understanding of any sort of these deep and serious things, it's so much elevated. I feel much elevated from that ego thing. Like, okay, oh yes, okay, now I'm struggling with these things. Other people are struggling with other issues, and okay, it is just these things. Just having the understanding actually get rid of a lot of ego nonsense. That, oh, this is bad, this is good, they are bad. I mean, no, it is just we all are in the same situation, and we have different expressions. So amazing.
Absolutely. Yep, I agree. Yeah, and that's so interesting, because that's also making me go back again to the concept of not slotting things into the category of good and bad when it comes to this. That if you are inappropriately expressing energy, it doesn't mean, again, it doesn't mean you're bad. It goes back to that concept.
Yes, exactly.
The concept for me of like, there is no such thing as bad. The only thing happening that you're slotting into a category of bad is just unawareness. It's a lack of understanding or awareness. When you're expressing your creative energy in an inappropriate way, it does not mean you are bad. It simply means you have a lack of awareness of what is an appropriate expression.
Yes.
When you're bad, it just means you don't have all the answers yet. And that's okay, because you can learn how to be a
yes. And also on the other hand, we can actually tap into this energy and can be really creative about it if I want to. This is like, wow, it's double whammy. Okay, on one hand, you know that the expression which are not really desirable, it's just an expression of this raw creative energy, and you can channel it appropriately. You can learn to channel it appropriately. Also, on the other hand, you can learn to channel it where you want to.
Right,
You
exactly.
can be creative in any situation.
Where and when you want to, yeah.
And this thing was like thinking in the beginning, I was continuously asking Sil that how you do this perspective shifting.
Yes.
And he always have something different about everything. And I was like, I'm not able to do this. The only solution I had, it was like, duh, and I shared with you. And he says, but no, why not this? And I was like, how he do that? I was simply not able to do that. But as gradually we learn and we start acknowledging things, this thing becomes innate to me. And I don't know that how it comes to me, like, okay, I can perspective shift also now. And this is the way of the first step, we can say that, towards the basic foundational steps towards creativity is to perspective shift.
Right.
If we are able to do this, okay, we are able to do a lot more things and can be really, really creative. Okay. So this is going to be really interesting. I just love that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is so interesting. Okay, I'm making notes here. Energy. Does not mean you don't have the proper tools or understanding yet. No. Yeah, that's huge. I mean, to me, that is such a huge perspective shift on behavior or aspects of self that we carry guilt about, that we feel are bad.
Yes.
It's not that you are bad or that there's any reason to feel guilty. It's just an inappropriate expression of your energy and power. And all you have to do is learn how to express it appropriately. That's it. I mean, at the core of all of it, that's all it is just, you're just appropriately. All you have to do is learn how to express it appropriately, and that's it.
This is the real acknowledgement.
Yeah.
Not like, oh, I just love all my negative expressions, inappropriate expression. No, but yes, this is the raw creative energy, and I can learn to channel it appropriately or whatever I want to. I can choose to completely inappropriate if I want to, but
Yeah.
the choice is a big deal here. And I can learn to do this. This is really huge. And now it seems like duh, that was the whole thing.
Like, it's so simple, but there's so much more involved. It's fascinating, really fascinating.
Fascinating. Now I feel so empowered today now. Like, okay, yes, I understand some really amazing things about that. Okay, and now we are going to really what we have just discussed throughout this week. I'm going to exercise all these notes what I have made, like, okay, this is my subconscious mind, and when the appropriateness comes into play, and before that, what the expression and all these things, I'm going to think about it one by one, and then try to implement, like, okay, in my different scenarios, actually, how it is going to be, and then I will share next week with you, and then we will have more material, and then we'll start writing about it.
Awesome. I love it. I'm so excited. Yeah, I'm going to do a lot more thinking about all of this. And there's so many things that have come up, like additional implications from this that are coming up. Like, for me, one of the things is, okay, how does emotion play into this?
Yes.
So there's got to be some connection there.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Do you remember that emotions are energy in motion?
Right, exactly. And that's literally what like emotion has to be. The energy is coming up and it's getting ready to filter this thought process. And so it
Oh
brings
my God. Now it makes sense.
it, yeah. So interesting. Okay. Yeah, we've got lots of thinking to do on this. Oh, okay. I'm gonna write that.
Yes.
How does emotion, yeah, energy and motion, like literally energy
Really.
moving through this. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's fascinating. How does emotion yeah. Oh, I'm gonna do a lot more thinking about that.
Oh yes. Yes. Now it's getting more fun. More fun.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, lots of thinking about that.
Oh my God. When you said emotions, and I was like, oh, come on now.
Oh man. Yeah. Oh man. See, and now, yeah, I want to think about, okay, where does emotion come into play in this process? Like, is it before it gets to the thinking part? Is it in tandem?
Oh yes, yes, yes. I wrote it down that when emotions comes into play. Okay, yes.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. Oh, I have so much thinking to do on this. Oh my gosh. Oh, okay.
It'll be fun. It will be fun, really. It is actually exciting me. Like I'm feeling that energy. Like, okay, yes, I want to do this more.
Me too. Is it
Wow. And if like, okay, I don't know that. Okay, I'm not looking forward for any kind of even miniature book. I just want these things to be write down in an appropriate way, in a proper way, where we can actually express this and share with. Because we are doing a lot of things like, okay, things are coming randomly and okay, oh, or Erica, I said that, and you said, no, this is this and this, and then we're making connections. But these connections will create an appropriate form, and then I want to make it in a presentable form so we can share it appropriately and properly. And this will be really fun, just for myself and
I
for
think
yourself.
so too. Yeah, I think so too. I love it. I love it. And I love thinking through things like this and getting it out into sort of creating a map.
Yes,
Okay, so this
yes,
goes here, and that means this goes here, and making it into this thing that makes sense and you can see it. Yeah, I love that.
yes.
I love it. All right. Well,
Yeah.
I'm going to make myself some lunch. Is Sil jumping back on? Did he answer?
I messaged him, but okay, now I'm going to do that. So,
I am starving. I'm going to make myself some lunch and get to the, I think I can get to the grocery store before my guitar lesson.
so next Friday will not be the same time, of course.
Right. Assuming that Joe comes on, then we would
Yes.
be an hour later than we were today, if that works for you. I know that's late for
Yeah.
you.
But okay, if not Fridays, we can still manage other times also, and we will see the calendar we have, and then if you have time, so please like, okay, if tomorrow you have time, so you can message me and we can discuss, and then we have, so we will not fix it as things come up, and as you have time and I have time, we can do this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good to me. Sounds good to me.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I love this. I love this.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I don't know what Sil is doing, but I guess I'm going to go ahead and jump off. So tell Sil.
Yes, I messaged him, but he's saying no. Yeah, all coming. Yes. Okay. Okay.
All right. Well, I will catch up with you guys Tuesday if we don't chat before then about shadow stuff. So
Okay. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Bye for now. Bye for now. Okay. So where is all coming? I come on. Hello. Hello. Okay, there you go.
Uh,
Okay, hello.
hello, sweet Beena. You guys were chatting so wonderfully. It seems like, I mean, you were, on for a good time. So brilliant, Beena. Brilliant. Almost 2 hours. Wow. Very
Yeah,
good.
almost.
And how was it, Beena? How was it?
It was really good. I love this because we had a lot of different um,
A lot
standards
of
about
a lot of what?
a lot of different kind of perspectives about
Fantastic.
health, and I just love that because that
Oh,
was the first time after so many years. I feel that I can communicate with someone with like, wow, we have no difference, nothing at all. We are on
ah,
the same page completely.